Hi, this video is about how to match Spanish letters with their sounds. Once you know the sounds, you can speak with the right, say the words correct way, you can speak with the right accent. So the good thing about Spanish is that each letter's sound is 100% consistent. So it'll never change no matter what the situation. Once you learn this sound, it'll always be the same. So that's a bit of a luxury that we don't have in other languages. So that makes Spanish kind of an easy language to learn. So we have I'll start with the alphabet. We have letters A, E, I, O, U in Spanish. And so A, you need to say it like A. E, you need to say like E. I, you need to say like I. O, you need to say like O. And U, you need to say like U. So the basic vowel sounds, the only vowel sounds are A, E, I, O, U. So there are no silent E's in Spanish either. So if the word ends in an E, you need to say the E on the end. Okay, so we'll move on to the consonants. So Spanish consonants you don't say in a strong way. You kind of just hint at them with your lips. So we'll take B, and we have the word for good, which is bueno. So I've barely mentioned the B. I put my lips together, but it's just a very soft B. B. Bueno. C. C's are hard when they're before A, O, or U. So we have a word like carro, carro. And C's are soft when they're before E and I. So we have a name like Cecilia, and I've said the C's like an S, which is like the way you say soft C's. So this is a principle that works for all of these languages: French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese. C's and G's can be soft or hard depending on which letter they're before. Okay. Also, if you're trying to learn Spanish like they say in Spain, like they talk in Spain, then your C's, they actually say soft C's as like a TH sound, like cielo. Don't complicate your life. Just learn it like an S. Just say it like an S. It makes things easier. Okay, so D, as I said, we don't say Spanish consonants in a strong way. So D is actually not like a D, like in English. It's kind of softer. It's kind of like a TH sound as well. So de. So we have a word like dia, which means day, and a word like ciudad, which means city. So ciudad, I've done like a TH sound with both of the D's. The. F is the same. No need for embellishment. G is hard before A, U, A, O, and U. So we have a word like gato, which means cat. G is soft before E and I, and it's almost like a H sound that you say at the back of your throat. So G would be GE, He would be GI. So we have a word like Argentina, which is the name of a very famous Spanish-speaking country. The GE sound is like G, Argentina. H is silent. All good there. So we have a word like hoy, H-O-Y, no H sound, hoy. J is like the soft G that I mentioned a moment ago, where it's like a H sound that comes from the back of your throat, like G. So we have a lot of male names in Spanish that start with J. We have names like Juan and Jose and Julio and a bunch of others. So you need to say that J like a H. K basically does not exist in Spanish. However, I have seen the word kilometro. But in a general sense, K and W don't exist in Spanish, except for very borrowed things. L is the same. So you have words like el, la, which mean the. We have an interesting one, which is a double L. Now that is kind of like an ly sound. We have a word like calle, which means streets, and and this double L is sometimes considered a separate letter in Spanish. So that could even be at the start of a word like llueve, which means rain or to rain. It's raining. So in Argentina, they pronounce that sound like a j, calle, llueve. You would probably be best off keeping it simple. So do it like a Y or an ly sound, calle, llueve. M is the same, m. N is the same, n. And the most basic word to say I'm not doing something is not. Nothing crazy complicated there. Okay, so we have a very, very super Spanish letter which is ñ. Ñ is the proper name. So it's N with the squiggly line on top. So that's an NY sound. So the classic word with that letter in it is español, which is the name for Spanish, the Spanish name for Spanish, Spanish in Spanish. So that's got an N with a squiggly line on top, español, NY sound. Q, we don't say it qu like in English, we say it just like a K. So the word what is que, and actually a lot of those question type of words in Spanish, like who and why or what, a lot of them start with QU in Spanish. So que is what, quién is who. R, so R, you need to tap the top of your mouth once. So we have a country name, Peru, which has one R in it. And rather than say Peru, we need to say Peru. Tapping it once to Peru. Alright, so double R's. Spanish, generally speaking, has no double letters except for double L and double R. In principle. So double R, you need to, as best you can, do the rolling R sound, which is hard to do. I couldn't do it when I was a child, but now I can. So we have a word like guitarra, and you can use your wild guess to take a wild guess as to what that might mean. Guitarra. S. S, okay, so when we were children, we learned that S's sounds are like snakes, like S, and that's pretty basic. We also learned that Z sounds in English are like a B, Z. So in English, Z can be said strong, like in English, the letter S can be said strong, like S, or it can be very relaxed and lazy, like Z, like a B. So in Spanish, the ZB sound does not exist. So all S's need to be said in a strong way. So we have a word like casa, house. Mi casa es tu casa. That Z sound can't be relaxed. It has to be strong. Casa. Casa bonita. That sort of thing. T is the same. So we have a word like tu, you. Et tu, Brute. V. V. B and V in Spanish are basically interchangeable. We don't have the strong difference between them like we do in English. So it's kind of like a soft sound where you're putting your two lips together and doing almost like a B. So we have a word like boy. So instead of saying voy like in English, it's kind of just like boy. And it's almost like saying a B. So boy means I'm going, I go. W, as I said, doesn't exist. Even an imported word like whiskey, I've seen written in a bastardized Spanish way, so G-U-I, la la la, as a way of avoiding the letter W, even though whiskey is whiskey in Spanish. X is the same. So for example, the word conexión, again, take a wild guess as to what that might mean. Now, a lot of words that use X in English have been replaced by the letter J in Spanish. And one example is the word example. So in English it's example with an X. In Spanish it's ejemplo with a J. And lots of words like executive are with a J in Spanish, ejecutivo. Y works the same as in English. So we have words like Maya and I. Maya is not a classical Spanish word, but it's said the same. I means there is, so it's a word that you use a lot. And one cute factor in Spanish is that there's a word which is just the letter Y, which means and the way you say that word is I. Z, I talked to you about Z's and S's. You must say Z's as like a strong S. The ZB sound, Z, does not exist in Spanish. So we have a word like zapatos, shoes. You need to say the Z like an S. In Spain, they may say that letter like a th, zapatos. Again, don't complicate your life. Just say it like an S. Zapatos. Okay, so one last little thing I'll talk about in Spanish is that we have a word that has more than one syllable. Generally speaking, one of those syllables will be stronger than the other. Like the name, like the word in English camera. The cam bit is stronger. So Spanish has very specific rules about how to say those words. Okay, so rule number 1, if your Spanish words in a E, I, O, U, as most of them do, or an N for no, or an S, then the stress is on the second last syllable. So an example of that is the word casa or casas, which is the plural, houses. And the word habla, which means she's speaking, or hablan with an N on the end. The stress is the same, second last syllable, hablan, which is the word for they're speaking. Rule number 2, if the word ends in any other letter, so any other consonant, including a Y, then the stress is on the last syllable. So we've got words like español, where the hard part of the word is on the end, español. Bailar, which means to dance, so it's ended with an R, therefore the stress is on the last part of the word. Estoy, which is a word that ends in a Y, but the stress is on the last part of the word. It means at the moment I am. And I've already used this word, the word for city, ciudad. The stress is on the last part of the word. Rule number 3 is that if any of the first 2 rules are broken, Spanish will always indicate it with a little mark above the letter, which they call it a tilde or an accent mark. So an example of that is the word francés, where the stress is on the last part of the word even though it ends in an S. So that's your starting point for learning Spanish, how to actually approximately say the words like a Spanish person, hopefully. So that's the building blocks, and I hope you go well with with beginning Spanish. Thank you very much.